I come from Chandigarh. I come from a small town.
What inspired you to apply for Harvard?
I always aspired to go out and get the best education possible. And Harvard came as definitely the number one name. It definitely adds credibility. If I talk about life changing, I don't think any one degree can change your life. But definitely it opens up a network of professors, of peers, and that is very valuable.
Usually we are shown a dream that if you get into Ivy League or top schools, then it's going to pretty much change your life. But yeah, it's really refreshing that you are able to normalize that it's just another school.
Today's job market, one needs to be an active applicant.
Let's say if I'm applying for a product management job at UC, what email should be I sending out to the hiring manager?
Keep your message personalized. Don't have a same message sent to everybody. That won't have good results. So don't upfront ask for a job. I think self-doubt is inevitable. People have it all the time. You can have it at a job. You can have it at on social media. Like, am I doing the right thing? What do people think? I think it's very common to have that.
Yeah.
I do admit I have it, but it's a passing thought. Keeping that aside and focusing on what I can do to make it better.
Good evening, everyone. So we are back with another podcast of Against All Odds. Today we have an amazing guest. So let me share a little bit about his journey from India to Harvard and then no job for almost 7 months. In a world where a degree matters the most, gives you the best guarantee the success, Abhijay faced something most people never talk about: rejections, identity crisis, silences from hiring manager. Today, he's successfully working at YouTube, helping others break into top roles through his webinars. And fortunately, he's here to share what actually works in this job market, beyond the hype and beyond the brand. So, Abhijay, welcome to my podcast and thank you for coming here today.
Thanks, Ashwarya. Appreciate the introduction. I'm happy to share my journey with everyone who is interested to know more about it.
Yeah. So, Abhijay, would you like to share your journey from India to Harvard and what inspired you to apply for Harvard?
I think if you ask somebody like why Harvard, I think Harvard, the name of course speaks for itself. It's a well-known, probably one of the best known brands out there in the education realm. So there was no doubt that if somebody was given a chance to go to Harvard, they would not go, right? So for me, it was a similar journey. I come from Chandigarh. I come from a small town. I always aspired to go out and get the best education possible. And Harvard came as definitely the number one name at that point. So I definitely had a lot of self-doubt whether I could make it or not to such a school. But there was the ambition, there was the aspiration, and a desire to go out there and shoot my shot.
And yeah, did your life actually change when you got accepted into Harvard? And how?
I would say Harvard, I definitely think it changed a few things, right? Like I just like a lot of the times when I was cold outreaching without a Harvard tag versus cold outreaching with a Harvard tag,
Yeah.
I saw improvements in response. Like people would say, oh, this person is studying as Harvard. So it definitely adds credibility. If I talk about life changing, I don't think any one degree can change your life, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot more for a life changing event to happen. But I would say that Harvard definitely contributed towards getting the visibility and giving the confidence which may not be there earlier in the initial phase of my life. Like, so yeah, it's like, in summary, I would say it's not like life changing per se. I don't think any one event can be life changing just by getting a degree, but definitely it opens up a network of professors, of peers, and that is very valuable.
So, me being an outsider, how being a Harvard student is different from any other schooling or education you've gotten? what's so like because given that it's number one school, what's something different you might have achieved because you also did undergrad from the top school, right? Anything you would like to highlight that you were taught at Harvard you might have not learned externally?
I don't think there is anything which Howard teaches like a pill which you like take this pill and you'll know all the secrets of. I think the same finance that you learn at Harvard, you can also learn via YouTube. That's I would just say that. But
Yeah.
what makes the place special is the kind of people they bring in, right? The 900 people that you meet in a classroom
Yeah.
are very, very talented and very, very special. They have had amazing experiences which add to your thinking. What Howard follows the case study method, which people may know about.
Yeah.
And what that does is it makes you have an opinion on everything. Before HPS, maybe I was not very solid on any opinion or like putting my point of view across in a succinct manner. But with the case study method, what happens is you tend to start forming those your judgments. I think training your judgment is what the case study method teaches you, which I think was pretty valuable overall, right? Not the specific cases that we discussed, but that muscle, that training that muscle of building a judgment and presenting your ideas in a concise way. I think that was very helpful from the education perspective. But like I said, finance or marketing or any specific course, all that can be learned from even YouTube.
Okay. Did it more like create pressure on you being surrounded by high achievers every day? That, like you said, 900 people in a class. Uh, so, yeah, please emphasize if there was any kind of pressure you had to go through.
I think so. I was the first from my undergrad to get into Harvard Business School. So there was nobody from with whom I had had a natural connection before joining the class. My peers had found somebody, either their seniors, like who were in the school already, or maybe 2 years ahead, and they could like relate with them and ask them tips about, hey, how is it to be at Harvard? Where do you live and how do you get around? So I didn't have anyone because I was the first one in my undergrad to get in. So I felt it was like a there's definitely self doubt when you even get into a place like Harvard because there's so many people who have done extremely well and you're thinking whether do I really belong here? But then I realized over time, it's not just me, but everybody else also thinking that do I really belong here because of the kind of environment that creates. And over time that normalizes, right? The first few months are definitely more in that imposter syndrome phase, but later on it normalizes. You find your tribe, you find people who you vibe with and who you want to like and then it goes into a very calm phase. I would say it's important to find your community when you are in places like in a place outside your own country, and that basically helps you get over that imposter syndrome where you're like, oh, it's about easing from like just like classmates to friends. I think that journey helps to ease that.
Yeah, makes sense. I really like how you are normalizing that you went to Harvard and it's like just another school which is helping you attain the credentials. But usually we are shown a dream that if you get into Ivy League or top schools, then it's gonna pretty much change your life. Um, but yeah, it's really refreshing that you are able to normalize that it's just another school and it won't get you the dream job you want. It can just give you credentials. Yeah. Now moving on to the next segment of this podcast, I would like to talk to you about the key highlight of this podcast, which is job search. So when did you start looking for job? Was it during your first semester, second semester, and how did you go about it?
When I was graduating, it was like May 2024. Your market was pretty bad, and I remember at that time, like 40% of the class didn't have any job offers at the time of graduation. So it was a tough time in general for overall the market in the US, but it didn't like spare even the Harvard or the Stanford or the big schools. I did not attend any career fairs as such because I just wanted my job search to be very focused. I'd made up a mind of few roles I would want to go in, and I was very targeted in that by reaching out to the right people and starting that narrative instead of going to a career fair. So I didn't go to any career fairs per se, but more doing outreaches on LinkedIn, or different, or asking professors for like connections, and starting off from there to land the first interviews.
Okay. So did that journey started when you were like 6 months into your program, a year into your program?
So I honestly, I didn't anticipate, like I not like everything happened for me a little bit last minute. Even for my summer internship, so I was with Apple.
Yeah.
I didn't like get. I was not like the first semester. I didn't even care about recruiting. It was not in my mind. I was like, I thought that it will happen when it would happen. And also for big tech, I think there is a time where you want to like start applying. You can't apply too early either. So I was not networking or anything. I was focusing on acads and enjoying the first semester at Harvard, just getting to know people and what is it to be here, and more in that phase. But towards the second semester, closing of it, I was actively recruiting for summer internships and for my job search as well. It was not until my graduation that I started actually applying seriously. Uh, so I basically waited to graduate to enjoy the entire 2 years at that time and come back. So I did that, and then I started to interview.
So Abhijay, when did started hitting you like, okay, the way you are doing things, maybe it's not working. You need to change your strategy. And how did you change it?
I think it was pretty evident from the job market. Like if you see people around you who don't have jobs, I knew we're entering a phase where the job market is not going to be good.
Yeah.
And the fact I was graduating without a job offer was a testament to the fact that it's going to be murky waters the next 6-7 months. So I was prepared for that. And the market enough was a strong enough signal that that there's going to be like more work needed than anticipated earlier.
Yeah. Abhijay, I was going through your webinars and you've been teaching a lot of people, and even I'm learning from you, how to actually crack this code of like from cold emailing to, like having a strategy to outreach people, and then cracking the interview and then landing the job itself. And you also talked about being a passive applicant versus an active applicant, right? So let's deep dive into, were you a passive applicant at first? And what changed you when you got into an active applicant?
Yeah, I think my idea of passive applicant versus active applicant is more about how you approach a job search, right?
Yeah.
I think if the job market is good, you can be a passive applicant and you land a job. By passive applicant, I mean somebody who's just like applies to the job and then just waits for hearing back, right? That's I would call a passive applicant, and that would work well if the job market is not market is pretty good, and you know that maybe like 2-3 years back that would have worked.
Yeah.
I think today's job market, one needs to be an active applicant simply because there are so many AI tools out there that can help you enhance your productivity in terms of outreach. It can help you like put your best foot forward in these applications, and in general your communication or cold emailing strategies, right? You can, if today you're able to put yourself out there and talk to the right people who are making these decisions, you can like leapfrog the process of recruiting instead of going the traditional way. So that was my basic idea behind an active applicant. I do talk about that in my last webinar as well, which was on how you can think about becoming an active applicant. And that basically involved how do you exactly cold email, right? Like I call it more a warm email than a cold email because that's what are the elements that go into it. Second, how do you break ATS black holes where you're like just applied and waiting and you don't even know what's happening? How can you use Gen AI to have like different versions of your resume which can cater to different job profiles that you're looking at? So all that I think comes under the realm of an active applicant, and I think that's the right way to navigate this job market.
Okay. Yeah, Abhijay, if let's say I want to become an active applicant, what would my day-to-day look like and how would you break it down if I'm applying as an active applicant? How would you break it down?
I would say in terms of just I'm thinking through. Like I would recommend first of all to have a plan in place, right? Like active applicants are not just wake up one day, apply for one job, and then forget about it, and then apply the second day. I don't think that works. I think the first thing should be very clear and ask yourself like, what are your goals? That have that written down, right? So my goal is to become a product manager at a big tech. Like the more the clearer you are about your goals, the faster you land the role that you want. So be clear on. But being clear does not mean that you're rigid, right? Like you can also say that I'm also open to doing a strategy role. I'm also open to doing a go-to-market role, but at least I know I want to do something in the tech. Like even that clarity is good, but having that and writing it down, that's good. Then you make a list of like number of companies that you're interested in. Let's say, so you would start with in your first initial 1 or 2 days, just list down the 100 companies that you are interested in, right? That you would be okay working with. And these are companies, if you got an offer from, you would be happy. And rank them basically based on your top companies that are of your interest, and just write them down that, and have a tracker which says that, okay, where am I in this process? Have I looked at their job portal? Have I got a referral? Have I applied? So just a tracker for yourself, and so that you organize in terms of the job application process, and any notes. If you had a conversation with somebody from that company, what they said about the culture, whatever that you want to keep in mind, that could be helpful. So keep this tracker. That's the number one thing I would do in this active applicant mindset. That's like, have a list and have a goal. This is what I want to do. The second thing I would do is which worked for me, because the regular route doesn't work because of the market, because there's so many, like 1,000+ applications for one role. I think you should keep an eye out on LinkedIn and other platforms that who are the hiring managers who are making these decisions, right? And then look at their past work and see how you could contribute to that work, right? Or have some sort of a add on to their work which they would find or appreciate. So that's the second thing I would do. Like just keep a track of what are these people doing, what do they talk about, add to the discussion or comment on their posts on LinkedIn, things that would genuinely make you seem that you're interested in what they are doing, and you would want to add and make a connection, and then reach out to them by a cold email. That's the third thing I would do, right? So you made a list now, you figured out that these people who are the people who are making these decisions in these companies. Cold email, I would say warm email them, like a short note on LinkedIn. You can write a personalized note on LinkedIn. It's 250, 300 characters, and talk about like how you want to, like asking them that, hey, this is my background. Would love to contribute to your work. I read about this that you were doing. Would you be available for a chat? And get to know them. But I think that's the third thing I would do. And it's like a repeat and rinse cycle, right? Like you keep updating that Excel with your list of companies, writing emails, then doing the or cold outreaches. And then during this time when you're waiting, you're also preparing for that first interview, hoping that you will land it, right? So you would like you have apply, you drop your cold emails, and now you have that time where you're waiting for a reply. Maybe like that could be as long as a week. So that time, once you've short your short your message, you're now at this point just preparing for your first round interviews on how you'd like maybe improving your resume or having like these behavioral round interviews, so on and so forth. So that's how I would structure my day overall if I was like job hunting again in this market.
Yeah, that was a really good rundown. Like you said, creating warm connections and writing cold emails, and then rinse and repeat the process, right? And I know there is a DM which got you into Apple, right?
Yeah.
Talked about that as well. So one of the biggest challenge people face is like they don't know what to write to the hiring manager, the recruiter, or even an executive when they're reaching out for the specific role. If you were to pretty much sum up LinkedIn, what would you say you were doing correctly on LinkedIn versus other folks who were not able to crack it?
Yeah, the number one thing I would tell is like keep your message personalized. Don't have a same message sent to everybody. That won't have good results. So personalize your message. So look into the person's background and cater that message to specifically for them, that they should feel that this same message you couldn't have sent to somebody else. That should be your test that you should do before sending. So personalize it. Second thing I would say is keep it concise. Like don't write long messages. People don't have time. It's like, I think 3 sentences, maximum 4 would be great. And third would be like, don't upfront like ask for a job or like something which was like just like it makes it sound very transactional. I would say you would just tell them that would you be open to like a chat and just like ease into it instead of directly asking upfront. I think those are my three top tips if you are cold out email, like cold reaching or trying to email recruiters or hiring managers.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's break into your warm connection strategy. And let's say if I'm applying for a product management job at UC, what email should be I sending out to the hiring manager?
Yeah. So I think in general big tech works differently.
Yeah.
So some strategies which I said may not work for big tech because big tech has a very structured process in terms of recruiting. Most of the times you're not even like meeting the hiring manager till your resume has passed the screening.
Yeah.
So if you're targeting, I think it's good to like if you're reaching out, you could reach out. I don't know how much that would help in terms of getting your resume screened because typically resume screening is happening by a recruiter. Um, but if your message is so strong to the hiring manager that they're like, oh, this person I would really like to interview, then they can bypass that and be like, oh, I saw this resume, seems to fit the description of the job that I'm looking at. So would love to interview this candidate. I think the number one thing you can do in talking to a hiring manager is look at the top 3, 4 things that the job requires. And in that conversation, make sure that you add those in that have done this in the past. Hiring managers are influenced most by people who have done that role in the past. That's the easiest switch for them because they think about hiring somebody new as also like the cost for training them for 6 months before they can actually add value to the company. And that training period can be as long as 1 year sometimes before you start adding value. So they want to reduce that training period to make their lives easier. So if you've done those things in the past, highlight them. And especially if your company is in the same niche that this company is in, that helps even more. So trying to build that relatable work experience from the past and saying, hey, I've done it in the past, so I'll be able to handle this. That would be a good thing to add in the first conversation with the hiring manager for these big techs.
Yeah. And also, I would like to know about call to action. You mentioned in your webinar. Can you emphasize a little bit on those? Like, how can I get someone to meet me on a coffee chat?
Yeah, I think just make it easier for them to respond instead of telling them, hey, like, let me know, like ending with let me know or like, what do you think about this? Which are very open-ended questions. I think you should just say something like, hey, so would you be open for a 10-minute discussion, coffee chat on Thursday, 12 p.m.? Like something like that was very specific so that they can just say yes or no. Because usually when somebody says no, they will not leave it at that. They'll say, oh, no, but I can do. And they'll propose an alternate time.
Right.
Or just say yes, which is what you want. So make it easier for them to respond when you're asking somebody for a favor because you're asking for somebody's time. So you want to ease into it. You want to like ask them more, like don't make it tough for them to answer. Make it as simple as it can be.
Okay. And Abhijay, based on your experience, what were you like if we were to sum up LinkedIn, what were you doing correct on LinkedIn versus your peers who were still not getting the job and eventually you were able to land a correct role? How did you view LinkedIn versus others might not be using it correctly? They should be.
I think a few things that you can do to optimize your LinkedIn is have an up-to-date bio. So the way the LinkedIn recruiter works is they look at also the bios of people, right? So if you are let's say looking for product manager title, if you already have like a product manager in your title in your bio, it helps you get that screening because they'll be like, oh, this person is a product manager. Similarly, if you're applying for a job and you see that a lot of product managers' job have like these 3 or 4 common things that they look for, update your previous experiences to be written in the same language so that those words get matched when recruiters search on LinkedIn. That helps you basically land better outreaches from LinkedIn. A lot of times, so for example, when I was interviewing for TikTok, I did not reach out to TikTok. TikTok reached out to me because it was there in my profile that I worked in a product manager and in ads, and exactly the same team reached out because they found those words. So I would just say optimizing your LinkedIn, keeping it up to date with those key job words. I think that's a helpful tip to follow to get noticed by recruiters.
Yeah, so you talked about how to outreach to the recruiter, to the hiring manager, and then do the correct interview prep. But let's say you're in the interview phase. What worked for you when you were interviewing with YouTube as a product management?
I think the best thing is to be prepared. Like, I know it's very simple to say, but you'll have to like not wait till like when I get the first interview is when I'll start preparing. Like in my day to day, when you ask me the question on day to day, I talked about how once you have sent out these emails,
Mhm.
you're already in the preparation phase for these interviews, right? So having done a ton of mock interviews with your peers is the best thing I would recommend. Like just doing that with your peers who are recruiting for the same role and quizzing each other, asking each other, so that you're also holding yourself accountable to the other person. That's what would help you prepare yourself for those interviews. So each job search for each function is different. Product recruits differently from consulting, from finance. So it really depends on but a few common elements across are like behavioral rounds, which you would see in these different interviews. But in general, the advice is to have a peer to prepare with, so that person keeps you accountable and you're both like very focused on your job search.
Were there were any Gen AI products you were prepping for interviews or your resumes?
Yeah, so like using LLMs was helpful. What happens is, like I was saying, you can have multiple variations of your resume. So typically, like each job is has specific keywords that they look for in those ATS, or the hiring manager may want to look. But you may want to present yourself slightly more tailored to that job than a more generic resume. So I would have like what I would do is have like variations of resume in my for myself. So one was just like a strategy resume, one was a chief of staff resume, one was a product manager resume. So they were like things I had done similarly but worded in a different way to suit that role more. I think that's fair game. You should be able to do that as long as you can talk about it. And what you can ask GenAI is like there are different LLMs. I think the model the chat GPT is 3.5 is known for multi-reasoning. So it can basically reason, you can give it like a multi-step prompt saying that, take this resume, identify the keywords that are not in my resume but present in the job description, and then it'll ask you to modify that and give me an updated resume. So it'll do all that for you and you'll get an updated resume which you can then use for that job. And then you can have like 6 7 variations of this, because it's not very now it's pretty easy to do that using LLMs. And that'll allow you to keep those 6 resumes ready and apply for your jobs when they come. And that basically adds efficiency to the entire process for you.
Was there a moment like in this journey when you thought, nothing is working, I'm never gonna get a job, and this is not never gonna end?
I think self-doubt is inevitable. People have it all the time. You can have it at your job, you can have it at uh, on social media, like, am I doing the right thing? What do people think? I think it's very common to have that.
Yeah.
I just feel uh, like like the problem with that mindset is it's kind of like a mindset where you cannot do anything about it, right? Like if I start having like self-doubt and I'm like, hey, I do admit I have it, but it's a passing thought. It's not a thought I stick on to, right? Like it comes, I'm like, okay, this is what can I do from here is the mindset you have, right? Like think about it always from the point of you're playing a game of cards and you're dealt your hand, right? Now you may have not been dealt the best hand of cards that you could have, right? You may not have 3 aces in your hand. But instead of thinking about like, hey, why didn't I get like the best possible cards? You can think about what's the best hand I can play given I have these cards. Right? That's how I think about it. So I don't let I let self doubt comes in. It does come in, but it's a passing thought, like I said. So keeping that aside and focusing on what I can do to make it better is the right way to think about it. Because I genuinely believe that people who have been like are resilient at what they want to do and who have stuck to their mindset of I will make it happen, those are the people that actually make it happen. So I don't subscribe to the fact that you can let self doubt take over you.
I know you're very content driven, but has content creation given you more visibility in terms of job by posting on LinkedIn or Instagram? Have you gotten more leads through uh, content creation?
Yeah, so I think for me, content creation, like I was not doing content creation with the intent of getting it noticed to some recruiters. It was not the idea. But the interesting story was my when I got hired at YouTube, my manager had actually seen my channel. So I ran this channel called Aspire. I still run it Aspire with Abhijay. So I just post like more stuff about recruiting and higher education and stuff like that. And I would just make me at that time I was making videos on getting into an MBA because I had cracked Harvard and I was like, people were reaching out. I just thought, why not make a video and share it with everyone? So apparently, before my call with YouTube, like my Google interview, my manager had told me that I had seen that video. It kind of gives them social proof that this person can, for example, at least he can communicate. For example, uh, if nothing, at least he can speak English. Like these things like this are just like I don't think they'll turn the needle for you. Like they'll make a no answer to a yes, but it does add credibility, I would say. So that was the story.
Can that work against you, content creation?
I mean, yeah. So the thing with content creation is you're putting yourself out there. So if there are things that you have, like, which is why I said, like, don't use content creation to like belittle companies or employees or like just go in that direction, because it just, if you have anything negative on there, it just basically, it doesn't help anyone, right? Like I just feel the like this, at least my channel is about basically inspiring people to be a better version of themselves, be it in jobs or be it in like higher education space, like getting people higher education degree. So that's why I run that channel. I just feel you should be careful about what you say on social media in general. It gets tracked is what I can just tell you, that people do look at it, right? From be like my manager looked at it. If I said something which was not very appropriate or something very negative, that would just leave a bad taste, and I would not recommend anyone to do that. So be careful when you make content. Make sure that it's in the right direction overall.
Okay, so the most interesting part, how was your experience when you met MrBeast?
Oh, so I think the one thing about Harvard is you meet a lot of like very famous people that you wouldn't have a chance to meet otherwise, because just Harvard attracts other top brands. So I think for me, meeting MrBeast, I think I talked about this in a reel as well on my channel.
Yeah.
It's just it's very surprising, like, or not surprising really, but the power of compounding at play, right?
Mhm.
So MrBeast, when you talk to him, and he, I would say, has understood the YouTube algorithm really well. Like he understands what works, and he's basically put in like maybe 15 years of his life into that. But today he's probably earning way more than the YouTube CEO is, right? And that just tells me that if you are dedicated towards one goal and go towards the depth of it, you can build an empire out of that knowledge. So meeting him was very inspirational. That just doing one thing, but doing that one thing really well, to the fact that nobody else can do it better than you, is just gonna give you like uh, reaping dividends, right? So I was very like inspired by his journey, and now he's like launching his own brand. He's launching. There's so many things which you at once think is a very small move, like uploading a video on YouTube. Who would have thought that 10 years back would basically make you worth $450 million one day? So that's was pretty surprising.
So, Abhijay, like I know you've been even offered to be paid for the course, but what's driving you helping, like you're helping people out there uh, with the job search? I have been in the same phase myself. Uh, can you share your thoughts? Why are you doing these webinars and how are you able to help people out there?
Like I just find other, like if I was job hunting and somebody was like, take this $1,000 course and I'll give you this, I'll give you that. It's just so harsh on the other person to pay like $1,000 for a course that may or may not get them the job. And it's more like making people who are in that need, uh, selling them something. I just feel it's not very genuine. And I think my idea behind, like ideally everybody who's part of that channel or part of the community that I run, is about now almost 500 members. I just feel committed to their success. That I feel like what drives me is that a message. So one of my students just got into like Stanford, and they were like, hey, and there's sort of very long message thanking me on how I could help them. I think that just gives me immense joy. I cannot explain in terms of just like how, but I just love reading those messages. So I read all the messages that I get on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I respond to most of them, but I read all for sure. And the fact that is when these messages come, where somebody just like landed a job offer in their dream company and they messaged me that, hey, this webinar was super helpful and I learned this. So that just is what drives me. And like I always tell people that you'll always be remembered by the kind of impact you've had on people. So with Aspire, my goal is to aspire as many people as can and tell them that they can achieve what they think is not possible, to make them achieve, yes, it is possible, right? Be it getting that right job or that next move in higher education, where they want to like move out of their own country and come to the US or come to any country abroad and study.
This was a really good podcast, and I hope to have another one with you where we can deep dive into interview prep. But thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Sounds good, Ashwarya. Love being here and all the best. Hope that this reaches somebody who is like lost hope in terms of either job search or studying abroad, and then this inspires them to apply.